Christmas dinner at my parents' house in Connecticut. Everyone's laughing, passing dishes, talking about their year, but nobody's asking me about work. They know, or they think they know. I'm the struggling daughter doing volunteer work with no salary. Meanwhile, my brother Marcus just bought his second penthouse in Manhattan. Dad raises his wine glass. To Marcus, youngest partner at the top law firm in New York. Everyone claps. He turns to me, smirking. And Maya, still finding yourself with that volunteer work, right? I grip my fork tighter, but before I can respond, Mom's phone buzzes. She opens a breaking news alert. Her face goes pale. Maya, is this you? There's a man in the corner I haven't noticed yet. He's watching everything unfold, but I'm too focused on Mom's phone to care. Hey, if you've ever been the family disappointment because you didn't follow the safe path, stick around. I promise by the end of this story, you'll see that real validation doesn't come from the people who hurt you. It comes from the value you create. And sometimes, the truth has a funny way of revealing itself at exactly the right moment. The Chen family. Successful Chinese immigrants in Connecticut. Dad's a university professor. Mom's a chief accountant. Marcus, my older brother, is a hotshot attorney. Everyone followed the safe route. Top schools, stable careers, high income. I'm Dr. Maya Chen, 32 years old, and according to my family, a complete failure. It wasn't always this way. When I was 16, I told my parents I wanted to study medicine. They were thrilled. As long as I became a private practice doctor, opened my own clinic, made serious money. That was the deal. Medicine was acceptable if it came with a Mercedes and a house in the suburbs. But during my first volunteer shift at a community health clinic, everything changed. I watched an elderly woman cry because she couldn't afford insulin. Her prescription was sitting right there, printed, ready to go. But she had to choose between medication and groceries. The pharmacist and I just stood there, helpless, watching her leave empty-handed. That's when I knew what I wanted to do, not just treat patients, change the system that made her choose. When Marcus got into Harvard Law, my parents threw a massive party, rented out a banquet hall, invited every relative within a 100-mile radius. There were speeches, a photo slideshow. My Aunt Nancy wouldn't stop talking about it for months. When I got accepted into the public health program at Johns Hopkins, one of the top programs in the country, Mom asked, "Why not surgery? You'd make so much more money." That's when I started to understand. Success, in their eyes, wasn't about impact. It was about income. Every Lunar New Year, they'd ask Marcus about his bonus, his million-dollar deals, his client list. They'd ask me, "When are you going to get a real job?" I graduated medical school with honors, got offers from prestigious private hospitals, $250K starting salary, benefits, the whole package. I turned them all down. Instead, I accepted a position with the Department of Public Health, $85K a year, government benefits, a cubicle instead of a corner office. Dad didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. When he finally did, he said, 9 years of medical school to become a government worker? You wasted your potential. That's when it hit me. I would never be enough for them if I wasn't rich. The rules were never written down, but everyone in the family knew them. Marcus could miss family dinners because he was working on something important. If I was late, I got lectured about not making time for family. Marcus's opinion was sought on every major decision, investments, real estate, even Mom's retirement planning. My input? Dismissed with, "You don't understand business." When Marcus bought his Mercedes, Dad posted photos on Facebook with 3 paragraphs about hard work and success. When my research on maternal mortality was published in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world, nobody read it. Last Thanksgiving, Aunt Nancy spent 20 minutes asking Marcus about his investment portfolio. She asked me, "So when are you getting married?" I tried to explain what I did. Public health impacts thousands of people. I was developing vaccine programs for underserved communities. I'd been invited to advise the state health department on policy initiatives that could save lives. Mom cut me off. "That sounds nice, honey, but how much are you making?" The pain turned into self-doubt. Maybe they were right. Maybe I should have taken the easier path. The path that came with a big house and a retirement plan and bragging rights at family gatherings. But every time I went back to the clinic, every time I saw patients who couldn't afford care getting treatment because of programs I helped build, I knew I was doing the right thing. I decided I don't need their approval. I just need to do my job well. There were nights I stayed awake until 3 a.m. staring at my studio apartment ceiling, wondering if I was lying to myself. Marcus made more in a month than I made in a year. He owned 2 apartments. I was still renting, still had $180K in student loans, still took the bus to work. Every time I went home, the pressure got worse. Mrs. Johnson's daughter is a dermatologist. She makes $400K a year. Your cousin just bought a vacation home in the Hamptons. When are you going to stop struggling? I tried to make them proud on their terms, started picking up extra shifts at a private hospital to boost my income, thought maybe if I had more money, they'd respect me. After 3 months, I was burned out, exhausted, missing deadlines on my public health projects, snapping at colleagues. That's when I realized I was working for them, not for me. I submitted a major grant proposal to the CDC, a comprehensive program to reduce maternal mortality in underserved areas. It was solid work, months of research, but it got rejected. Mom heard about it somehow. She called me. See, this path isn't for you. You should go into family practice. Stable patients, stable income. I didn't argue. I just said I'd think about it and hung up. That's when I made the decision. I started limiting contact. Only came home for major holidays, stopped trying to explain my work, poured everything into my career. If they wouldn't see me, fine. I'd build something they couldn't ignore. My paycheck barely covered rent, loan payments, and groceries. I lived on meal prep and leftovers, took the bus everywhere. Meanwhile, my former classmates from med school were driving luxury cars and buying houses. I didn't care anymore, or at least I told myself I didn't. One day, I was presenting data at a state health meeting. Nothing fancy, just a routine update on vaccination rates in low-income communities. My slides were dense, numbers, charts, demographic breakdowns. After I finished, this woman approached me, Dr. Patricia Williams, the state health director. She'd been an ER doctor for 15 years before switching to public health. Dr. Chen, she said, I've been in this field for 20 years. Most people come here because they couldn't make it in private practice. You're here for the mission. That's rare. She became my mentor, taught me how to navigate government bureaucracy, how to turn data into policy, how to communicate with legislators who didn't understand healthcare. You have a gift, she told me one afternoon in her office. You see patterns in data that most people miss, and you know how to turn those patterns into programs that actually work. I didn't believe her at first, but then I noticed it. I could look at public health data, mortality rates, vaccination coverage, hospital admission patterns, and see the story underneath, see where the gaps were, see what interventions would work. I developed a maternal health initiative targeting high-risk communities. We provided prenatal care, education, transportation to appointments, and postpartum support. Within 18 months, maternal mortality in those communities dropped by 23%, the CDC noticed. So did the governor's office. I got invited to join the governor's health task force as a consultant. I didn't tell my family. The CDC invited me to present my research in Atlanta. My parents thought I was on vacation. Every achievement, every recognition, I kept it to myself. Because I knew if I told them and they dismissed it again, it would hurt worse than their silence. The governor's health task force was intimidating at first. I was the youngest person in the room by at least 15 years, sitting at a conference table with hospital CEOs, insurance executives, senior health officials, all of them looking at me like, "Who's this kid?" Our first meeting, they were discussing the opioid crisis. Lots of talk, not many solutions. People kept circling back to the same ineffective strategies. I raised my hand. "Can I show you something?" I pulled up data on my laptop, overdose rates, prescription patterns, gaps in addiction treatment services. Then I presented a comprehensive plan, prevention education in schools, expanded access to medication-assisted treatment, naloxone distribution programs, community support networks. The room went silent when I finished. Then the governor's chief of staff, Robert Hayes, started clapping. "This is exactly what we need. Who put this together?" "I did," I said, "over the past 6 months." After that meeting, everything changed. Dr. Foyt Award. Williams recommended me for a leadership position in the state health department. Robert Hayes started inviting me to policy meetings. The governor himself asked me to brief him on healthcare initiatives. Suddenly, I wasn't just a consultant. I was being treated as an expert. I started learning things they don't teach in medical school: policy development, budget management, how to negotiate with legislators, how to build coalitions, how to communicate complex health data in ways that non-experts could understand. I wasn't just a clinician anymore. I was becoming a policy expert. My maternal health program got national recognition. The infant mortality rate in the state dropped to a 10-year low. I got invited to speak at the White House Health Summit. When I came home for Christmas that year, Mom asked, "How's the volunteer work going?" I just smiled and said, "Good." I became acting deputy state health director. I was 30 years old, managing a $400 million budget and overseeing 800 staff members. But I didn't post about it on social media, didn't tell extended family, kept my LinkedIn deliberately vague. I had regular meetings with the governor, advised the state Senate on health legislation, collaborated with the CDC and NIH on national initiatives. People in the field knew my name, but my family didn't. Then COVID hit. I was put in charge of the state's pandemic response strategy. Every decision I made affected 12 million residents. Where to allocate ventilators, how to distribute vaccines, when to implement restrictions, when to lift them. I worked 20-hour days, slept in my office, lived on coffee and adrenaline. We weren't perfect, but our state had one of the lowest mortality rates in the country. We got vaccines to underserved communities faster than almost any other state. We kept hospitals from being overwhelmed. I testified before the state legislature, got screamed at by protesters, made decisions that saved lives, and got death threats for it. Through it all, my family thought I was still doing volunteer work. Marcus posted about his corporate deals on Facebook. I was briefing the governor on public health emergencies. The contrast would have been funny if it wasn't so painful. In October, the state surgeon general announced his retirement. The position had been held by the same person for 12 years, a respected physician in his 60s who'd served under 2 governors. The governor wanted someone different, someone who understood both clinical medicine and health policy, someone who could communicate with the public, someone who represented the future of healthcare. Dr. Williams called me into her office. "Maya, the governor wants to nominate you for Surgeon General." I thought she was joking. "You're 32, she said. "You'd be the youngest state surgeon general in history, but you've done the work. You've earned this." The vetting process took 2 months. Background checks, interviews with the governor's senior staff, review of every policy decision I'd made. In early December, the governor called me personally. "Dr. Chen, I'd be honored if you'd serve as our next Surgeon General." I said yes. The announcement was scheduled for December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. The governor's press team would handle everything. Press release, social media, official statement. I didn't tell my family, not because I was hiding it, I just knew they wouldn't believe me until they saw it themselves. Mom called 3 days before Christmas. "Marcus is bringing his new girlfriend home. You need to come so the family's complete." I almost said no. I was exhausted. The last thing I wanted was another Christmas dinner where I got treated like the family disappointment, but something made me say yes. Maybe I was tired of avoiding them. Maybe I wanted to see their faces when they finally understood. I drove to Connecticut on Christmas Eve, stayed in a hotel instead of my childhood bedroom, showed up to dinner at 6 p.m. exactly. The house was full. Not just immediate family, extended family too. Aunt Nancy, Uncle Tom, cousins I hadn't seen in years, all successful, all ready to compare accomplishments. Mom had set up a whole presentation about Marcus and his girlfriend, photos on the TV, stories about how they met, speculation about engagement rings. I sat at the end of the table next to my middle school-aged cousins. I tried to keep quiet. eat dinner, and leave early, but Aunt Nancy couldn't help herself. "Maya," she said loudly, "you still don't have a stable job?" Everyone turned to look at me. "I have a job," I said calmly, "but it's volunteer work, right? No salary?" "I have a salary," Uncle Tom chimed in. "Your mother said you work for the government. That can't pay much." I didn't respond. Just took another bite of turkey. Then Dad raised his wine glass. "Let's toast to Marcus, youngest partner at the top law firm in New York." Everyone clapped. Marcus grinned. Dad turned to me. "And Maya, still finding yourself with that volunteer work, right?" The table laughed, not meanly, just dismissively, like I was a punchline they'd all heard before. I felt my face flush. My hands shook slightly, but I kept my voice steady. Something like that. That's when I noticed the man in the corner, tall, in his 40s, wearing a nice suit, Marcus's friend, apparently. He'd been quiet all dinner. He was staring at me with this weird expression, like he recognized me but couldn't place where from. Mom sighed dramatically. "Okay, everyone might as well know. Maya works for the state health department. No salary. Basically volunteer work. We still have to help her out financially sometimes." Complete lie. I hadn't taken a cent from them since I was 25. But I didn't correct her. What was the point? They wouldn't believe me anyway. Aunt Nancy clicked her tongue sympathetically. "At 32, you really should have a career plan figured out, sweetie." Uncle Tom nodded. "Your parents must be so worried. Volunteering doesn't pay bills." The man in the corner stood up suddenly. Robert Hayes, the governor's chief of staff, Marcus's friend from law school. I hadn't recognized him out of context. He looked at me, then at my mother, his expression shifting from confusion to something like anger. "Mrs. Chen," he started, "about that volunteer work." And that's when Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, went pale. Her hand started shaking. "Maya," she whispered, "is this you?" Mom's phone screen lit up with a breaking news alert. Her face drained of color as she read it, then read it again. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Maya," she whispered, loud enough that the conversations around the table started dying down. Is this you?" She turned her phone around. I could see the headline from across the table, even though I already knew what it said. "Breaking. Governor announces Dr. Maya Chen as new state surgeon general, youngest appointee in state history." The photo showed me shaking hands with the governor, professional, official, undeniable. Dad grabbed the phone from Mom's hand, read it, looked at me, back at the phone, at me again. "This can't be right," he said. "Maya, this has to be someone else with the same name." Aunt Nancy leaned over to see. Uncle Tom pulled out his own phone, frantically typing. Marcus just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Robert Hayes was still standing. He cleared his throat. "So, actually, Mr. Chen, I can confirm that's her. I've worked with Dr. Chen for 2 years. She's been the most trusted health advisor to the governor's office during that entire time." The room went completely silent. Someone's fork clattered against a plate. "Wait," Marcus said slowly. "Maya, you know Robert through work. I thought I introduced you two tonight. We've been in meetings together at least twice a month for the past 18 months, Robert said. His voice was tight, controlled, professional, but I could hear the edge underneath. She briefed me on the state's COVID response strategy. She testified before the state legislature. He looked at my mother. "Mrs. Chen, that volunteer work you mentioned? Dr. Chen has been the acting deputy state health director. She manages a $400 million budget and oversees 800 employees." Mom's hand went to her mouth. Dad sat down heavily, still holding the phone. Aunt Nancy's phone buzzed. Then Uncle Tom's. Then everyone's, all at once, as the news spread across social media and news apps. My cousin Lauren, who was 17 and permanently attached to her phone, gasped, "Oh my God, Maya, you're trending on Twitter." "What?" Aunt Nancy grabbed Lauren's phone. The tweets were rolling in. News outlets, health organizations, government officials, all announcing the appointment. Photos of me at various events I'd never mentioned to my family, the White House Health Summit, congressional testimony, CDC conferences. Uncle Tom was reading from his phone, voice getting quieter with each sentence. Dr. Maya Chen has been instrumental in reducing maternal mortality rates by 23%, led the state's COVID response, testified before Congress on healthcare disparities, youngest state surgeon general in American history. You testified before Congress? Aunt Nancy's voice came out as a squeak. I didn't answer, just took a sip of water and waited. Dad was scrolling now, frantically. There are hundreds of articles. Maya, you were on 60 Minutes. I watched that episode. I didn't realize that was you. It was 7 months ago, I said quietly. I told you I'd be on TV. You said you were busy that night. Mom started crying. Maya, I don't understand. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you explain what you were really doing? I set down my water glass carefully. I did tell you, multiple times. You never listened. But you said public health, Dad protested. You said you worked for the health department. I do work for the health department. I run it. But you said we thought... Mom couldn't finish the sentence. Marcus finally found his voice. Maya, I had no idea. I thought you were just... I'm sorry. I should have asked more about your work. Yeah, I said. You should have. Robert was still standing, looking uncomfortable. I should clarify. Dr. Chen has been eligible for this position for over a year. The governor conducted a nationwide search, interviewed candidates from Harvard, Johns Hopkins, the CDC. Dr. Chen was selected because she's the best, not because of connections or luck, because of merit. Aunt Nancy looked like she might faint. Surgeon General, that's a bigger position than State Health Director, right? It's the highest-ranking health official in the state, Robert confirmed. She'll be advising the governor on all health policy, leading the state's medical community, setting public health priorities for 12 million residents. The room was still quiet. People were staring at their phones, reading articles, trying to process information that contradicted everything they thought they knew about me. Uncle Tom cleared his throat. Maya, this is incredible. Congratulations. The word felt hollow, perfunctory, like he had to say it but didn't quite believe it yet. Thank you, I said. More phones buzzed, a news alert from CNN, NPR, local stations picking up the story. My cousin Lauren was reading from Twitter, eyes wide. Someone posted your CV. Maya, you have 17 publications in major medical journals. You won the National Public Health Leadership Award. The CDC has a whole page about your maternal health program. Your vaccine outreach program was featured on 60 Minutes, Uncle Tom repeated, still reading from his phone. The one that got vaccines to underserved communities. That was you? Yes. I watched that episode, he said softly. I told everyone at work about it. I didn't know it was you. Because you never asked, I thought, but I didn't say it. Dad was reading the governor's official statement. His hands were shaking. He says here that you were his first choice from the beginning of the search process, that your work during COVID saved thousands of lives. Maya, is that true? The data supports that conclusion, I said, clinical, detached. Mom was crying harder now. Why didn't you tell us? We could have celebrated. We could have been proud. You were never proud before, I said quietly. Why would this be different? Because this is huge, Maya. This is Surgeon General. And the White House Health Summit wasn't huge. My publication in JAMA wasn't huge. Testifying before Congress wasn't huge. My voice stayed level, but I could feel the anger underneath. Years of it. Or were those things only huge now that the governor thinks they're huge? Mom didn't have an answer for that. Marcus was still scrolling through articles. Maya, there's a video here of you giving a presentation at Johns Hopkins. The comments are calling you a genius. Someone from the CDC said you revolutionized their approach to vaccine distribution. That was 2 years ago, I said. I mentioned I was giving that presentation. You said you couldn't make it because of a client dinner. His face fell. I didn't realize it was that important. Everything I've done has been important, Marcus. You just didn't think it was. Aunt Nancy had recovered enough to speak again. Well, I think this calls for a toast to Maya, our Surgeon General. She raised her glass. A few people followed awkwardly. I didn't raise mine. No, I said. Everyone stared at me. Maya, Mom said, voice pleading, let us celebrate with you. Where were you when I needed celebrating? I asked. Where were you when I was working 80-hour weeks on my maternal health program? When I was testifying before hostile legislators? When I was getting death threats during COVID because people didn't like the policies I recommended? The room was silent again. You weren't there because you didn't care. You didn't care because there was no money in it, no prestige you could brag about, nothing that made you look good at dinner parties. That's not fair, Dad said. We just didn't understand. You didn't try to understand, I interrupted. I tried to explain. You didn't want to hear it. You wanted me to be a dermatologist making $400,000 a year so you could tell Aunt Nancy's friends about my salary. Maya, please, Mom begged. We made mistakes. We're sorry. But we're your family. Family doesn't require you to be rich to be respected. Robert cleared his throat. I think I should go. Maya, congratulations again. You've earned this. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, Marcus, it was good to see you. He walked out. I heard the front door close. Marcus was staring at his plate. I really am sorry, Maya. I've been a terrible brother. Yeah, I agreed. You have been. He flinched. But at least you're acknowledging it, I added. That's more than they're doing. I gestured at my parents. Dad set his phone down. Maya, what do you want from us? I wanted you to see me, past the salary, past the job title. I wanted you to ask about my work because you cared about what I cared about, not because it might be impressive. We do care, Mom insisted. Now you do. Now that the governor cares. Now that there are news articles and Twitter trends and congratulations from the CDC. I stood up. But I needed you to care 7 years ago, when I was just starting, when one word of support would have meant everything. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair. Where are you going? Mom asked. Home. But we haven't had dessert yet, and we should talk about this. Make plans for your new position. We could help. I don't need your help, I said. Not meanly, just factually. I haven't needed your help since I was 25. I built this career alone. I'll continue it alone. Don't say that, Dad said. You're not alone. We're here now. You're here now because you have to be. Because it would look bad if you weren't. Because Aunt Nancy is going to post about this on Facebook, and you need to be able to say you're supportive. Aunt Nancy looked guilty. I walked toward the door. Marcus stood up. Maya, wait. Can I call you sometime? To actually talk about your work? I paused, looked at him. He seemed genuine, ashamed even. Maybe, I said, but not because I'm Surgeon General. If you want to call me because I'm your sister and you actually want to know how I'm doing. I do, he said. I really do. Then prove it. I opened the front door. The cold December air hit my face. Mom called after me. Maya, please, don't leave like this. Let us make it right. I turned back. She was standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Dad behind her, Marcus behind him, all looking at me like I was a stranger. You can't make it right, I said. Not tonight. Not with a toast or an apology or congratulations. You made it clear what mattered to you, and I made a life where that doesn't matter to me anymore. But we're your family, Mom said again, like it was a magic word that fixed everything. You are, I agreed. And I will always be your daughter. But I won't be the daughter you measure against Marcus. I won't be the daughter you have to explain to relatives. I won't be the daughter who needs your approval to know she's successful. I got in my car. Through the windshield, I could see them standing in the doorway. Small, confused, maybe even hurt. Good, part of me thought. Let them feel what I felt. But mostly, I just felt tired. I drove back to my apartment. My small, one-bedroom apartment that I'd been embarrassed to let them see. The apartment I could finally afford to move out of but hadn't because I'd been too busy working to apartment hunt. I made tea, sat on my couch, looked at my phone, 63 text messages, most from colleagues and friends congratulating me, a few from former classmates I hadn't talked to in years, one from Dr. Williams. "You earned this, Maya. I'm so proud of you." Nothing from my parents. Not yet. I thought about the expression on Mom's face when she read that news alert. The shock, the confusion, the moment when everything she believed about me shattered. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant even. Instead, I just felt sad. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Mom. I didn't answer. She called again at 7 a.m., at 8 a.m., left voicemails each time. "Maya, please call me back. We need to talk about this. We need to explain." But what was there to explain? I'd heard enough explanations last night. Dad texted around 9 a.m. "Maya, your mother is very upset. Please call us. We want to make this right." Marcus texted at 10 a.m. "Can I take you to lunch sometime this week? I want to hear about your work. Really hear about it." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I went into work. The office was decorated for the holidays, mostly empty because of Christmas week, but I had reports to review, meetings to prep for January, a transition plan to finalize. Dr. Williams found me in my office around noon. "You're supposed to be celebrating. Why are you here?" "Work doesn't stop for Christmas week," I said. She sat down. "Your family saw the news." It wasn't a question. "Yeah," I said. "How did that go?" "About how you'd expect." She nodded. "They didn't know." "Nope. And now they want to make amends." "Yep." Dr. Williams was quiet for a moment. Then, "Are you going to let them?" I looked up from my laptop. "Should I?" "That's not for me to answer," she said. "But I'll tell you what I learned when my own family finally understood what I do. Sometimes people can't see what's right in front of them until someone else validates it. It's not right, it's not fair, but it's human." "So I should forgive them?" "I didn't say that." She stood up. "I said they're human. So are you. You get to decide what you need." After she left, I stared at my phone, at the missed calls, the voicemails, the texts. They were sorry now. But were they sorry for hurting me? Or just sorry they were wrong about me? There's a difference. My phone rang again. Mom. This time, I answered. "Maya, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all morning." "I know, I was working." "On the day after Christmas?" "Public health doesn't take holidays, Mom." Silence. Then, "Can we see you? Dad and I want to talk. Really talk." "About what?" "About everything. About how we handled things. About your work. About, Maya, we didn't know. You have to understand, we didn't know what you were doing." "I told you what I was doing." "But you said public health. You said health department. You thought I was a failure because I wasn't rich," I said flatly. "Let's just be honest about it." "That's not..." She stopped. Started again. "Okay, yes. We measured success by money. We were wrong. Are you wrong? Or are you just sorry that other people know you were wrong?" She didn't answer right away. "Maya, please, come to dinner tonight. Let us apologize properly. Let us celebrate your achievement." "You want to celebrate now? 24 hours after you called me jobless in front of the entire family? We didn't know." "You didn't listen," I corrected. "That's different." Another long silence. "What can we do?" Mom asked quietly. "Tell us what to do to make this right." "I don't know if you can make it right," I said honestly. "You hurt me, Mom. For 7 years, you made me feel worthless because my career didn't match your expectations. And now you want to celebrate because the governor thinks I'm valuable? It's not like that. It's exactly like that." I rubbed my temples. "Look, I need time to process this, to figure out what I need from you, if I need anything at all." "Maya, I'm not cutting you off," I said. "I'm just asking for space. Can you give me that?" A pause, then, "Okay, yes, take the time you need. But Maya, we love you. We always have. Love isn't enough if it comes with conditions, I said, and yours did, whether you meant it to or not. I hung up. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. Mom, Dad, Marcus, even Aunt Nancy sent a long apology text about how she'd misjudged me. I didn't respond to most of them. The news cycle moved on, but people in the health field kept reaching out. Congratulations, interview requests, invitations to speak at conferences. My apartment felt smaller than ever, full of reminders that I'd been living small, staying invisible, not wanting my family to see how modest my life actually was. But I didn't need the big apartment, the fancy car, the impressive possessions. I had something better. I had work that mattered, recognition from people who understood what I did, a career built on impact, not income. On New Year's Eve, I was alone in my apartment, by choice. I'd turned down party invitations, declined drinks with colleagues. I sat on my couch with a cup of tea, thinking about the past 7 years, the long hours, the sacrifices, the loneliness of building something meaningful while everyone around me chased prestige. And I thought about that dinner, about Mom's face when she saw the news, about the way everyone scrambled to Google my name, to understand who I actually was. Part of me felt vindicated, but a bigger part just felt sad. They'd lost 7 years of knowing me. 7 years of sharing my victories, understanding my struggles, being present for the work that defined my life, and I'd lost 7 years of having a family who saw me. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. I know you asked for space. I'm respecting that. But I wanted to say, I looked up your maternal health program, read about the work you did. Maya, you saved lives. Real people are alive because of what you built. I'm sorry I never knew that. I'm sorry I never asked. And I'm sorry it took a governor to make me see my own sister. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. No agenda. Just a brother who wants to know his sister. I read it 3 times. It was a start, not enough, but a start. I texted back, "Thank you for saying that." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," I typed. "Why didn't you tell us? Really tell us? Make us understand how important your work was?" I thought about that. About all the times I'd tried to explain and been cut off, about the publications they never read, the presentations they never attended, the achievements they never asked about. Because making you understand would have meant fighting for your respect, I wrote back. And I decided I'd rather earn respect from people who were capable of seeing me. Another long pause. "That's fair," he replied, and painful to hear, but fair. "Yeah," I sent back. "I want to be someone who can see you," he wrote, "if you'll let me try." I looked at those words for a long time. "We'll see," I finally responded, because that was the truth. I didn't know if my family could change, if they could learn to value things beyond money, success beyond status symbols, worth beyond what you could brag about at parties. But maybe they could try. And maybe that was enough for now. On January the 2nd, I was officially sworn in as State Surgeon General. The ceremony was at the state capitol. Press, photographers, the governor giving a speech about my qualifications. I scanned the audience, colleagues, state officials, health department staff who'd worked with me for years. And in the back row, Mom, Dad, and Marcus. I hadn't invited them, but they came anyway. After the ceremony, they approached cautiously, like they weren't sure if they were welcome. "Maya," Mom said, "that was beautiful. Your speech about health equity. It was powerful." "Thank you," I said. "We won't take up your time," Dad added quickly. "We just wanted to be here, to support you." I looked at them, really looked at them. They seemed smaller than I remembered, older, uncertain. "I appreciate you coming," I said. "Can we take you to dinner sometime?" Mom asked. "Not to apologize again, just to spend time with you, to hear about your work if you want." Did I want that? I wasn't sure, but I heard myself say, "Maybe. Let me check my schedule." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a door left open instead of slammed shut. Marcus hung back as our parents left. "That speech," he said, "the part about how healthcare is a human right, not a privilege, about how your job is to serve the people who need you most, not the people who can pay the most. Maya, that was who you've always been. I should have seen it." "Yeah," I said, "you should have." "I'm going to do better," he said. "I promise." "Don't promise," I told him. "Just do it." He nodded, hugged me, and left. I stood there in the empty ceremonial room wearing my official badge, carrying the title I'd worked 7 years to earn. And I realized something. The validation I'd wanted from them, the recognition, the pride, the respect. I didn't need it anymore. I'd built something real, something that mattered, something that saved actual lives, with or without their approval. My phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Williams. "Congratulations, Surgeon General. Now the real work begins." I smiled, texted back, "Bring it on." Because that was the truth of it. This appointment wasn't the end, it was the beginning. And whatever happened with my family, whether we rebuilt our relationship or stayed distant, I would be okay. Because I knew who I was, I knew what I was worth, and I knew that my value wasn't measured by their opinion. It was measured by the lives I touched, the policies I shaped, the people who got health care because of programs I built. That was enough. More than enough. That night, I went back to my small apartment, made tea, sat on my couch. Tomorrow, I'd start moving into my new office. Tomorrow, I'd begin the work of serving 12 million residents. Tomorrow, I'd step fully into the role I'd been preparing for my entire career. But tonight, I just sat with the quiet. And for the first time in 7 years, I felt truly at peace. Not because my family finally understood me, but because I finally understood that I didn't need them to. Success isn't proving people wrong, it's building something meaningful while they're busy not watching. And I'd done that. So yeah, they called me jobless at Christmas dinner. And yeah, the governor announced my appointment while they were still laughing. But the real victory wasn't in their shock or their apologies or their sudden respect. The real victory was in knowing that every day, somewhere in this state, someone has access to health care because of my work. Someone's life is saved because of policies I shaped. Someone's child has a healthier future because of programs I built. That's what matters. That's what always mattered. And that's what I'll keep fighting for, whether anyone in my family is watching or not.